everybody. It's Thursday.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Night Bite.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Emily.
And happy season 6. This is our first episode of 2026. And that's why we were caught off guard, because that's the new intro if you didn't notice.
No, I'm going to be honest. Normally, Josh and I talk about that kind of thing, and he created it, and he was like, let me know if you like it. And so if that was your first time seeing that, that was my first time seeing that too. So we might need to make an editor too.
Oh,
Anyways, this has been an awesome start to our ice season.
Hey Scotty, happy birthday.
Ice oh yeah, Scotty's birthday. Hey, we got to come out and ice fish with you, man. But we have had a good start to our season so far. And actually, we were just talking to Alex about, he's going to be our guest coming up. In some cases it's been a tough bite. I think we've been out there and gosh, we've kind of been grinding it out. So maybe that's why it's felt like we've done okay. But ultimately, the trend is that there hasn't really been a trend. Is that a stupid thing to say? What are your thoughts on ice on our season so far?
I mean, I guess here's the thing is that we've only hit one body of water more than once. And so that's hard to talk about trends when you're moving around so much.
But we've had some decent ice, we've
had
of water.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say it's like perfect safe ice.
I mean, we're ranging anywhere between 8 and 12, depending on where you're going and what the where we're fishing. So on different water, and then different waters have different ice. So it's always changing. But we're doing pretty good as far as that goes. Fishing, we've just been kind of all over the place. So.
Well, and I guess I do also have to acknowledge that, one of the things about ice season is that it is ever changing. And so depending on where you're at in the state right now, it might be, I was going to say raining, it might even be pouring out.
Yeah.
And so, rain is one of those things that will affect that ice condition like really quickly.
Yeah, it's gonna clear everything out, and then it looks like we're gonna get a bunch of snow on top of it. So we're gonna see how this weekend pans out. It's gonna be kind of a crazy ride, but should be. Hopefully, looks like the weather starts to improve as far as precipitation in our area goes after Saturday. So hopefully everything tightens back up and we can get back to normal fishing.
Get back to normal fishing, whatever that is. Yeah. Okay. Well, we have, I just want to sit here and talk fishing more, but that's what we're going to do all evening. So we're going to bring our guest in. We're going to do some more of this. And I guess I was going to say, you're going so quick here. No, it's okay. No, it's okay. But everybody at home, if you have a fishing report, let us know where you're at or how fishing has been or what you're using or any of those things, because we love all of that. And if you have questions or comments or things along the way, toss that in because we love to chat about that as well. So with that being said, Alex, you are a guest of honor for the evening. So thanks so much for being here.
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
So for people who might be just meeting you, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So my name is Alex Dvorak. I am the general manager of Neptune Ice Rods. I also am the chapter head of Wisconsin's Ultimate Veteran Adventures.
That is awesome. And I feel like we run into you all the time. So add like all around great ice fisherman or something to the end of that, right?
Yeah, I don't like to toot my own horn, but I catch a couple fish here and there.
And maybe something having to do with those Neptune rods.
Yeah, definitely.
So we were talking a little bit about our season. I guess, how has your season been so far?
It's been a little slow between the holidays. I just bought a house towards the end of the year. So I've been kind of getting all that set up and going. My first time out, I was just sight fishing, and it was probably at like that window of the day where nothing really bites anyways. So I didn't really have much luck. The next time out, I had a buddy from Florida in town that wanted to ice fish, and we went up north in the blizzard, and we probably had no business being out, but I caught some nice perch, a couple 12.5s and a 13. He caught some bluegill, but it was only, 6-7 fish for the 5 hours we were out. It was pretty slow with the heavy weather conditions we were experiencing. And then this past weekend, I was on them. Like, we were marking them all day. They just would not bite. We had one like 31 inch pike. It was really girthy. It had really, you know, really heavy meat on it. That my buddy's kid caught on a tip up. But other than that, it's, this weekend's my first true, like, I'm getting up at 4 tomorrow morning, swinging up by walleyes and whitetails and Coleman to get bait, and then shooting up to Phelps, and all day tomorrow, all day Saturday. It's my first true, like, hard outing of the year. So I'm hoping to really make up for lost time.
And that's actually a great time of the year to be doing that because, with the holidays, you mentioned sometimes for people that's hard to get out, but for some people, that's what they are planning on doing, and so for us, we're like just the brink of the Northwoods, right? And so I feel like sometimes with the holidays, we are like where people go and celebrate their cabin time or like whatever, however you want to put that, right? We are the up north. And so for us, I'm kind of looking forward to some of these bodies of water, like, I don't want to say emptying out. It's not that extreme, right? But some of the traffic, some of the yahoos, so I don't know. I'm looking for maybe the quieter part of ice season. Is that a thing?
Quieter. We're barely on water that has barely 2 people on it.
Okay, that's a good point because so I guess one of the things we've been doing this year is we've been really, I'll blame myself. We've been really using Onyx, right? But I've been looking for all of these, I don't know, little bodies of water because to some extent, when I do know that there's going to be a ton of people out there, I want to avoid the traffic and the crowds and some of the craziness. And because sometimes that foot traffic just really affects the bite. It keeps those fish like hunkered down. And so when you can go somewhere that's not getting beat on all day, I just think there's something to that.
I would definitely agree. I've noticed the last couple winters as the sport of ice fishing is growing and you're getting more and more people on the ice, it seems like they're getting more and more noise sensitive. Like, there's a couple lakes I fish that if there's no snow cover, you better walk to your tip up, or it doesn't matter how much line they pull out. If you're running, they're just going to drop your bait. I've even seen it. I'm not a huge live scope guy, but I've seen where, like, we're in forward mode and a snowmobile will go by and that school that's there suddenly just disappears. So I definitely think noise plays a role for sure.
You know what's interesting about that, though? We have a lake that we've been kind of fishing just south of us here, and they have been also quite sensitive to noise. And I think that's kind of how they always are. But I've also kind of found maybe that you can use this to your advantage a little bit, right? And so one day I felt like the fish kind of all kept pushing, 20, 30, 40 feet away from me. And we went and we drilled a hole over there, and wouldn't you know, like they ended up pushing back the other way. And it doesn't always happen like magic like that, right? But
Sure.
once in a while, if you can get that traffic to pile up in certain ways, it can be in your favor.
Yeah, you just got to get a line of generators and block where they're trying to go and, kind of keep them centralized to where you're set up.
Well, and I think, I had a conversation with somebody not too long ago about this very topic. And I think the conclusion I've come to is it really is water body dependent, right? So when Emily talks about the ice season, getting to the quiet part of ice season, and when she talks about that, for context, that means not seeing anybody else besides me or another person we bring with, and so like when you do have some extra foot traffic on bodies of water like that, when you may be one of a half a dozen people on the lake at any given day during the week, having it, and if a group goes out there for a fishing day or whatever, the whole lake might just be shut down because it's just too loud and stuff like that. But if you go down to Winnebago, there's people ripping around on that all the time. It becomes the norm. I grew up in Minnesota, and there was always people ripping around on stuff. And, as soon as you got 14 inches of ice, which over there, it, used to be like sometime early December, mid-December, you'd be rocking on snowmobiles and four-wheelers. So like, it's traffic all winter long. They have roads out there with signs. So like those fish out there, I don't feel like are as affected as like fish over here. Like we're fishing national forest. It's really quiet a lot of the times. A lot of these lakes are small. So even people might not even need to use vehicles to go out there most of the time, and then somebody's traveling for a vacation or something, they bring the four-wheeler with, and that might be the only vehicle that water body sees that one weekend, right? So I just think you just have to be mindful of it, depending on where you're fishing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. You know, you have a big lake like Winnebago with all sorts of people. I kind of feel like those fish get used to that. Whereas like up by you guys, you have some of those tiny little hidden gems that if they even see anybody fishing it at all in the winter, let alone no crowds and, you know, foot traffic or a wheeler, I think any sort of little sound might kind of, you know, make them react a certain way to not feed as heavy, or maybe the first hour or two they're kind of slow, and then once they kind of realize okay there's no more noise, then they start to wake back up and get more aggressive. I have a spot actually, it's kind of in the Pembine area. It's actually a bog. It's about not quite 3 acres, I don't think,
Everyone's
somewhere
like
around there.
jumping on Onyx and like filtering like crazy right now.
Oh yeah. Well, it's a pretty
You are
well-known spot. Yeah. No, it's a well-known spot. It's just kind of tough to get to. But if you can get back there, there's actually brook trout, and we just run a perimeter of holes around it, and like every other hole we'll throw a tip down or a tip up, and then the ones that are empty will jig in. But we drill all of our holes right away. We don't use any sonar, no cameras, nothing. Once everything's drilled, we don't even put a line in the water for the first hour. Because if you do, we set our tip downs and, you know, get those lines in, but we don't even jig for the first hour because all that noise, like they don't touch anything. And then all of a sudden you'll see the first bite and then the second bite. And next thing you know, it's just a frenzy. So yeah.
That's fun. Oh my gosh. So I guess as far as, you know, you're mentioning all kinds of fishing, multi-species, we're talking about lakes all over the place. So, you know, when we think about some of these fishing techniques and the rods that go with them, you're a little bit of an expert on that, or have some know-how, right? So how do you go about choosing, I guess, either like an all-around good rod if you're not sure what you're targeting, or do you just right away jump into, you know, getting species specific rods?
I kind of go more species specific. I like to go for panfish more because the bigger fish kind of avoid me like the plague. Uh, that, and I'd rather catch a walleye or a pike on like a traditional beaver dam type tip up. I think it's more fun than, you know, reeling them. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love to reel them in too, but there's just something about a flag going up that just is there's nothing that replicates that sort of excitement in my opinion. But as far as the rods go, there's several factors to include. Am I fishing outside or am I in a shack? If I'm outside, I'm going more super sensitive, like an ultralight. I said that backwards. If I'm inside, I'm doing like an ultralight. If I'm outside, I'm doing a light action, just so that extra little bit of sturdiness comes into play if it's windy. That way my tip's not dancing and I can control my jig a little bit better, but it's still sensitive enough that when they're slurping, I can see that tiny little flutter on the tip. Now, if I'm going to try to, you know, go to Winnebago and waste my time not catching any walleye, but I'm using heavier baits, I'll go more of a medium action, stuff like that. So.
That's funny. You never know. Sometimes I've seen some good fish come out of that lake.
Oh, there's great fish. I just never catch them when I go out. I'm lucky if I catch a buzz when I go to Winnebago, let alone a fish.
Yeah. So you were mentioning the light versus the ultralight, and Jack is wondering about like the rod length. Does that differ for you if you're inside or outside?
I think that's kind of a horse apiece as far as like it's up to the individual angler. If I'm outside, I'm typically hole hopping, so I'll go a little bit of a longer, something in like the 30 to 40-inch range. That way, if I don't want to hunker down and get close to the hole, I've got something long enough where I can still stand up straight but keep my tip closer to the ice. Versus if I'm in the shack, it's not as spacious as being wide out in the open. So I'll go something from like the 26 to 30-inch, maybe 32 at the most. Situation dependent, but that's just my personal preferences.
Yeah.
Well, how about you?
That's why I was taking a big size because I mean that's the thing is ultimately it's about what works for you. So a lot of times in a shack I'll go a little bit shorter because I'm that person that I like to jig up, jig up, jig up, and I hate to hit my ceiling when you set the hook, right? So when I have too long of a rod, I don't know, maybe I need something with more backbone, but I don't really think that's it, right? I just really like a short rod.
What you need, Emily, is a Neptune. Because if you're holding it from the pistol grip, all you have to do is flick your wrists. You're not gonna, high stick and hit the ceiling of whatever shack you're sitting in.
You never know. I mean, I guess that is a good point, but I just always, when you play the keep away game, and it just depends on how far they're willing to follow you. And it's, sometimes they bite right away, and sometimes they follow you like 6 feet, and it's like, how? Just bite.
Well, and so I've kind of adopted some methods that kind of allow me to be right in the middle there. I like a rod that's between 30 and 35, something in there for both applications, because I'm short enough where a rod like that, when I'm standing up, will be close enough to a hole, like when I'm hole hopping outside, or I do a lot of kneeling anyway. The pads in the striker stuff is so good. Like I can kneel a lot all day long, and I haven't gotten old enough where getting up off the ice is a problem yet. But I can also bring that rod into the shack, and instead of raising my arm, I just set my rod on my knee, and I just hit the reel, and I just reel up. And it took me a little while because it's really hard because you want to do that, right? It's
Whatever,
like
yeah.
you're trying to keep it away, but you can achieve that same thing by reeling and just like continuing to jig while you reel. Just supporting your arm is kind of the big thing there, and trying to remember to keep your arm anchored. And a lot of times that helps me from not smoking the ceiling. But sometimes, it's inevitable. You're going to hit the ceiling. It's just too exciting not to.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. It happens to me every once in a while. I catch myself doing the rookie mistake and high sticking from excitement because they chased you up the entire water column, and then you put slack in the rod from touching the ceiling, and the fish gets off. And then, well, actually, that's more like my best friend Matt. He does that almost every hook set. It's quite hilarious. But one thing I started doing last winter. And this is kind of a skill that I adopted from my time in the Marine Corps. When we go through the chow hall in boot camp, they make you keep your elbows glued to your rib cage when you're going through the chow line. And the thought process is that gets you ready for when you're on the rifle range, because when you're shooting, if you keep your elbows glued to your ribs, you have more control over your weapon. So what I do in situations like that when I'm ice fishing is, I got my hand on the reel. I'm kind of working it up. And right when my hands get just below my pectorals, then I'll just sit there with my rod hand and kind of bounce the tip, and I'll slowly reel while doing that. And then when I get bit, then it's game on from there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I know it looks kind of, weird, but it works.
Hey, if you're in your shack, nobody even knows.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, so how about I'm jumping species quite a bit here, but how about rods for brook trout or even the odd salmon? Do you ever do that kind of fishing?
I haven't gone for any trout or salmon on the ice. I think the last time I went to that spot I was talking about was probably 2018, if I remember correctly. I would definitely go something on the heavier route, like a medium heavy. The bigger or stronger the fish, the more backbone you're going to want. And I think if you go too light of an action, you're going to be prone to potentially breaking your rod if it's a big enough or heavy enough fish. I also would go something a little bit more longer. Like at Neptune, we have a 44-inch hole hopper. That's probably the one. If I ever go back to that honey hole, I would use that one. As Phil just commented, the 30-inch medium is a solid rod for that, as is the 32 recoil. That's our straight handle rod that we came out with for auto setting devices. That one would be a pretty good one too. But yeah, I've been so wrapped up in chasing crappies the last few winters. I haven't even thought about trout. And then I saw Kyle Tyree came out with a early Ice Brook video. Then I saw you guys got on some trout. Now I'm kind of getting the itch, like, oh, maybe I should go up there this year and make a trip up. I don't know. We'll have to see.
That's so funny. Well, and I really did like your recommendation of maybe perhaps a slightly longer rod. That is something that I hear, especially from people who are fishing for lake trout. So I know that's a little bit different, but trout as a species, dare I overgeneralize, they really can rip line, right? If they get on a run, that's one of those, they do that more than a crappie, like especially, I mean, unfair example, right? But one of the places I'm going with this is that when you have those runs and you have that fish pulling and putting that stress, sometimes that slightly longer rod adds a little bit more, like spring in that bite, and you get a little bit less of those like hard pulls. And I just think that's like safer, with the drag set right and a good long rod. I think you have kind of better chance of pulling in that big fish.
Yeah, and I think in addition to that, for trout, I always like to err towards like a more medium action. A light power could be fine if you're fishing for some of the inland browns and brook trout. But if you're talking about like some of the bigger like coastal brook trout or some of the bigger like salmon species on the Great Lakes down here, I would probably go towards a medium heavy power, but stay in that medium action range, because trout are one of the fish that actually get more feisty the colder the water is, whereas a lot of our white meat fish, they slow down a little bit, and so they tend to have a little less, I don't know, power behind their swim. And so you're not as likely to pull a hook out as you would be on trout. And that's why trout tend to be fairly elusive during the wintertime, because they are like all full of it, right? This is their jam right now. So yeah, just keep a lookout for those rods in that medium action. I think that would be really helpful too.
Yeah, no, I 1000% agree with that. But we did at Neptune, I don't know if you guys happen to see the new rod we came out with this year at the show. I've been in Phil's ear for the last probably 2 winters now. I'm like, hey, we gotta come out with some new products. We gotta have to come out with a facelift a little bit. So we came out with a 38-inch quick tip power noodle style rod. I finally got to break it in last weekend on a couple. I don't even know if I'd consider it breaking in, because the 2 bluegill I got jigging while we were not catching fish weren't very big. Let's put it that way. I could have probably put them on a tip up if I wanted. But it feels, I think this is our best rod yet, honestly. It's 38 inches in length. It's got a really super sensitive soft tip. So when those crappie or perch or bluegill are kind of doing more of a slurpy type of bite, when they're just kind of softly grabbing it, or like they suck it into their mouth or whatever, you can see it all. But if you're not watching, you wouldn't even know they're there. That's the only way I got those 2, because I was watching my rod tip. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even caught them probably. But I like that it's got, the super sensitivity, but it's also got a sturdy backbone where if I hook into a walleye or a pike, I'm not going to have to worry about playing with my drag too much. That's going to be able to handle the extra force and not break. But if it would break, we have a lifetime warranty, so you can't beat that.
Can't beat that.
That's awesome. I do like the power noodles, and I think a number of years back, I think Phil had us build him one specific for one of his handles, but he had some extra colors he wanted done, so we did something nice up for him in a power noodle, and that was a really good rod. I almost didn't want to give it to Phil, but he wanted it, so we got it to him, and he's enjoyed that. So I'm glad to see that you guys brought that into the arsenal.
Yeah, no, we came out with that one. We tweaked our light action and that hole hopper as well. So those 3 rods now have a reinforced fiberglass shaft. we switched the eyelets to single wrap titanium. So basically it's easier to knock the ice out as it, builds up and such. And it's a different shade of blue. It's a little bit brighter. But yeah, I was, when I finally got my hands on them at the ice show, I was really excited. I think it's gonna, I think eventually, as we run out of the current stock and build more for seasons to come, I think that's definitely gonna catch a lot of attention. We've been steadily growing this year. We had a really good show. We had some incredible online sales leading into the holidays, especially. Boots Lures put out a video from the ice show that had like 150,000 views, and we gained like, I don't know, I'd have to go back and look, but somewhere in the 500 to 600 new follower range on our Facebook page, and we had a ton of orders coming off of that video. So it was a writhing success. And we actually picked up a couple new retail locations too. So aside from the ones that are on our website, you can now find us at the Ace Hardware in Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you said it was Wisconsin Rapids. And then I just closed a deal this morning with Walleyes and Whitetails up in Coleman, Wisconsin. I have two Phils I have to answer to now. I've got Neptune Phil and Walleyes and Whitetails Phil. And I actually, when I was emailing both of them, I put their little nickname in front of their actual name, so they knew which one I was referencing as I was typing it out.
Oh my goodness. That is so funny. He's confirming, yes, Wisconsin Rapids. So there you go.
Okay. For some reason I thought it was Rhinelander, but I just had to make sure. I didn't want to be, incorrect, but yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. So when we are talking about rods, one of the next things that people think about is, I guess, stringing them up, the line that you're using. And so a little bit back in our comment section, Jack is asking, does your line choice matter depending on if you're fishing inside or outside your shack, like due to icing up? What are your thoughts on that?
If you're using fins braid, you ain't got to worry about it. I use it inside, outside, nighttime, daytime, in my sleep, at work. That's the only line I use. It's still gonna, if you're outside and it's super cold, you're still gonna get ice buildup on the outside. There's nothing you can do to prevent that. But the nice thing about this fins braid, I use 4-pound for all my panfish setups, and it's got 9 pounds of pulling force, and the diameter is equivalent to a 1-pound mono. So you don't have to run a leader on it or anything. But imagine, it's like -30 out, for example. You drill a hole, you take a piece of rope, soak it in the water, and then pull it out. It's going to freeze, and you're going to have to actually, snap it like a tree branch to break the ice off. And that's what a lot of people think happens to braided line, but that is not at all the case. It'll never freeze up on you like that. You're still going to get buildup on the outside. There's no way you can prevent that. But even then, it's not bad. Like mono and fluoro, I think, are a lot worse. But when it comes to the line I use the Fins Braid Ice Tamer, and I've had no problems with it. When I jumped on their team a few winters ago, Ryan Salami gave me one of the sample spools. That same spool is still on my reel, and the only thing that's changed on it is the first, 16, 18 inches of line. That yellow chartreuse is starting to fade, but I've caught pretty much everything besides a sturgeon and a muskie on that thing. And there's no phrase, there's no, it's still structurally sound. It just, the color's losing its dye or whatever sort of material they color it with. So.
Oh my. I do think that going way back, you were making a really great point though, that if you are in a shack, well, no, opposite. If you're outside, whatever is going to withstand the outside is going to withstand being in your shack. So I don't necessarily have two separate lines. I don't have, I think exactly what you're describing. When you have something that can withstand the elements, you can be inside or outside or nice day or not. So the line especially is one of those times where, and you're nodding, we do the same, right? It's one of those prepare for the worst kinds of things, because if I can go out and jig successfully in those super bitter cold days, it's also definitely going to work out on those days where it's maybe sunshiny and a little bit nicer.
Yeah, and I think the lighter that you can go with, the more successful you're going to be, because just ultimately less line is going to carry less water. Alex is really correct. Like the fins braid, I've noticed doesn't suck up water, so it doesn't get that crinkly, icy effect to it. It stays supple throughout the day, even though it does build up a little bit of ice on it. Like you just pull it. I always just pull mine down and it melts when it gets into the water again. But we actually switched over to the 2 pound this year, and it does even better than the 4 pound. Like it's just amazing. And we were, have we put the 2 pound on yours yet? I can't remember, but we were out catching. I was catching rock bass and walleyes the other day on my 2 pound, and I didn't switch my leader. I run like a 4 pound leader for panfish, and it's just amazing what a good line does for your fishing. So I think smaller is better in my opinion for ice fishing.
Oh, absolutely. I actually I haven't gotten any of the Finn's 2 pound yet. I wasn't really planning to try any because Rich gave me so much line a year or two back that I don't really need more. I'm running out of storage for it all.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, that is awesome. And I know that there's a lot of Fins fans out there. So I know people will be checking that out. That is for sure. And I guess the other thing that I'm going to point out, getting back to the Neptune rods itself, when people think about setting up and hitting the ice, the other thing that they think about is that reel that goes on that. And so a lot of the Neptune rods even come with that reel. So that really is a great opportunity for people to get right out on the ice.
Yeah, no, we have several reels. We have the JP 200, the JP 500, and new this year we're carrying the PC Fun Viper X. We actually just sold out of our last JP 500 reel. So upgraded combos on our website will now come with the PC Fun option. The JP 200s, it's a decent little starter reel, but a lot of the components are plastic, and if it's really cold out and it gets any water on it, you're probably going to have some issues. I typically call it like not quite a kid's reel, but like comparable to like a Zebco or something like that. But the JP 500, it's all alloy components. I've ran, your Fluger Presidents, your PC Fun Carbon X's, your Okumas, pretty much all the big brands in the past, and this one performs right alongside those. The only difference is the colors, in my opinion. Plus, ours has a folding handle, so it's easier to store in your rod case, which I'm a really big fan of that. I run Lakewood cases, and it's nice to be able to fold the handle and squeeze a couple extra rods in with the added space from that. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is for sure. And I guess you're talking about folding the handle of the reel, but that does really, I guess, make me think of, the rod. One of the things it is notorious for is kind of having a bend in the handle. So the nice thing about, Neptune is that they are fish catchers, right? We talked about the rods, the application, all the things that you can catch and do with it. But ultimately, it also offers like a very comfortable, do I call it an ergonomic design, right? Is that where we're going here?
Yes. So the handle we have on our jig rods was designed by Phil's dad, John. He has some carpal tunnel and some other hand related issues. So over the years, he always tried to find a different way to grip his ice rod so it was more comfortable for him. And over time, they developed that angle. And then they tweaked it here, they tweaked it there. So it's not only good for people with the ergonomic issues, it's also actually really comfortable to hold it from that position. And the nice thing about it is you can still hold it that pencil grip style. And on the back side where that handle sits behind your thumb actually helps it stay balanced as well. But aside from that, it also, like I mentioned earlier, when you're holding it from that pistol grip, if you just flick your wrist when you feel a bite, that barb is through their lip and you have an easy hook set. So it's a lot less wear and tear if you have shoulder problems or, stuff like that. It's, marketed as the ergonomics, the most friendly, the most comfortable rod on the market and the easiest hook sets. So can't beat it.
Your booth is friendly too.
Yeah.
I mean, like at the shows, the expos, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we have a blast working the shows. We didn't do St. Paul this year because the last couple years, last year was my first year working it, and from what Phil told me, attendance looked like it was down. I think we broke even last year, but with all the rising costs of the booth, and then you got to get a hotel and meals, we do those to see like-minded folk like you and talk fishing, but we're also in it to sell product and make money. And we decided to take a break this year, but we definitely made up for it in Wisconsin. Everybody showed up and showed out, and we had a lot of returning customers. We had a bunch of new ones. We made some awesome additions to our pro staff this year. I have a married couple up near Crandon, Brittany and Jeremy Strew from Trophy and Media Company that came on board. I got Angie Benson from Stryker. We all know how awesome she is. We even got on Brad Moynihan. Brad, if you're watching, sorry if I jacked up your last name. That dude's a crappie killer over in Wausau. So the future's looking very bright for Neptune. We actually sold out of our 28 lights from the old style. So now everybody that orders our light action rod in the 28-inch length will get the one that we talked about earlier with the updated shaft, the single wrapped eyelets, the different shade of blue. So, we even got that new logo. I don't know if you guys saw it on the Facebook page or not. But I decided to give the brand a little bit of a facelift. Nothing against the old logo, but I feel like every so often you kind of have to, it's just like if you remodel a house, after a while, those cabinets from the 80s have to get replaced, or that tile floor needs to get ripped out for some, new flooring and such. So we stuck to our roots with Neptune, but we actually put a face to the logo now, and we kind of ponied off the Greek god Neptune a little bit. It kind of looks like a stone statue that you'd see wherever you would see stuff like that, museums. I don't know. But he's basically sitting in his throne. He's got one hand on his thigh, and on that bicep, we actually put on the Navy anchor. Phil being a proud sailor. And then in the other hand, it is kind of like he's leaning there, after a hard fought battle, and he's holding up his fish on his rod. You can see the ergonomic handle on it, and it's got a crappie hanging off the end. We kind of kept it like a stony shade of blue, I think is the best way I would describe it, or maybe like an Arctic shade of blue. But if you go to our Facebook page, you'll see it on the profile picture. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I had some decals made that unfortunately didn't make it in time for the show, because I was going to hook you guys up with some. They're sitting on my kitchen countertop right now. So at the end of the season, the ones that I have remaining, I'm going to hand over to Phil. And if you order some product from us in the off season or next fall, you might just get a couple. I think I only ordered like 70, and there's like a 4-inch and a 6-inch option.
Mm-hmm.
I think I only ordered like 70 or 75. So we might just do a little, Willy Wonka golden ticket sort of deal. If you order a rod, you might get a free decal out of it too. Who knows?
Awesome.
That's crazy.
So.
Oh my gosh. Well, the other thing that I do really love hearing about, and I guess this is going back in the show a little bit, but that Neptune does really kind of keep up with all the different things that an angler is going to need. And so you were talking about even having a rod for auto setting devices. We've talked about jigging. We've talked about all different kinds of applications tonight. So it just is great to see that no matter what somebody's fishing for or how they're fishing, that there is going to be an option for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, we're, I'm kind of in Phil's ear since we had such a good sales. I want to see, like a 32, a 34, and a 36 length. And I'm even kind of trying to get him to potentially look at a more traditional straight handle jig rod, just so if people want to order a Neptune, but they don't necessarily like the ergonomic handle, that we have like a more traditional style too. we're just kind of softly kicking the tires on that. That's going to be a little ways down the road. We've got to grow a little bit before we can look at that. If we do go that route, it's probably going to be at a higher price point realistically. But yeah, like him and I, we talk almost daily about how we can, add new products, make the company grow. So like I wouldn't be surprised if we can have a really strong sales year this year and next year. If there's a way we can figure out how to scale it without rising our cost, and maybe you see Neptunes and the Shields and Bass Pros of the world down the line someday. You never know. Yeah, it's been fun, and I'm excited to see how my pro staff does this year. I think like I said, the start to my season was a struggle, and I think there's some struggle from everybody else too. Is like, besides Ken O'Malley, I don't know if that dude just doesn't work, or if he's like, the short little leprechaun that he is, and he lives on a pot of gold that he can fish every day. Good God, that guy catches some fish. Wowza. But I know one of my guys actually got frostbite, so he's down for the count. But I know now that January's here and we have ice, this little bit of rain, I don't think is going to change conditions much. If anything, I think it's going to smooth the surface and knock all that snow down. And then it looks like after next week, it gets pretty darn cold. So I'm anticipating some good content to put out there for all the customers and viewers. And I actually had a guy yesterday send in quite a bit of pictures and hook set videos of some crappies that I'll be posting in the next couple of weeks on the Facebook and Instagram pages. So pretty excited about that. But yeah, it's winter, so 'tis the season, right?
Oh my gosh, awesome. Well, gosh, so we have talked about rods and reels and line and fishing and all these different kinds of things. And even besides that, you keep yourself busy with a few other things. Is that true?
Oh yeah, no days off for this guy. Outside of my full-time job, I am the I call it the chapter lead, but I'm pretty much a one-man band. I run Wisconsin's chapter of Ultimate Veteran Adventures. We do therapeutic hunts, fishing trips, kayaking, horseback riding, any sort of outdoor activity at no cost for veterans, Gold Star families, first responders, active duty troops. I do a lot of what I do is in the winter months because ice fishing is easy, and the fact that you don't have to cram people into boats, and as long as they can get themselves on the ice, or if I have a fleet of snowmobiles to zip people back and forth, I can get big groups out relatively easy. Last year for 2025, this is my 5th year of doing that sort of thing now. Last year was my slowest year. I only ran 14 trips and got a total of 84 individual faces out, which for me, that's pretty slow. I had a lot of changes in my life outside of that. I think I told you guys about that at the show. So that kind of took time away from that. And, I had to kind of put some things back together and start the new to me life, if you will. But this year we're starting off strong. My first trip of the year is this weekend. I'm taking a group of 10 out up north. And between January and February alone, I'm on the books for 52 of our members on the ice. And if the ice holds, and I haven't even touched my calendar for March yet. So I'm hoping by the time April rolls around, that number grows to 100. And my goal for this calendar year is 300 or more. My record is 31 trips, 221 individual faces. I never count the same face twice. So
Nice.
Wow, that is so busy. But it does sound like a great time to be out on the ice, and certainly you have that expertise in matching up people with rods and connecting with fish. So it's been so great to talk with you here this evening.
yeah, it's always fun talking to you guys. I don't know if I'm gonna make the Madison show or not, to be determined, but if I end up getting down there, I definitely need one of those legendary Jensen hugs. I always get excited when I see you guys, and hopefully, if our schedules allow, we can get on some ice, or maybe you guys can come over to my neck of the woods and we can hop in the boat and go chase some walleye in Winnebago this summer.
Sounds good.
And before we part ways, I also have to ask, if people are excited about Neptune rods and all of these things that we've talked about tonight, can you remind us, is there a website? How do they find Neptune rods and follow along with the adventures?
Absolutely. So they can look us up on Facebook, Neptune Ice Rods. We also have a website, NeptuneIceRods.com. Pretty easy to find. If there's any veterans or first responders that want to join the program that I run, they can look up Ultimate Veteran Adventures on Facebook. From there, in the About section, they'll find the website with more information. And then if you want to follow along to the stuff that I do, I'm not much of a big name social media guy. I just like to call myself a fish fluencer, because I basically make highlight clips from the trips that I run for vets, as well as content with the companies that I represent. Every once in a while, some of my videos hit quite a few views. I'll send you guys when we're done. There's one I made that's duck hunting related. It was just a cap cut filter of Cat Williams doing a stand-up skit, but if you read the caption and then watch him do it's pretty funny. So I try to mix it up. But Echo 4 Delta Outdoors is my Facebook page. Alex Neptune 34 on TikTok. So hope to see you guys there, and I'm sure I'll be seeing the two of you sooner than later, hopefully. So, and I see Wayne Arnold on there. What's up, Wayne? I'll be seeing you on the ice this winter at some point. And if Jebediah is still watching, he is placing an order with Neptune, and we're going to ship it to him up in Newfoundland, Canada. Neptune does ship international, so
that's awesome.
Keep that in mind.
Well, always great to know. And thank you so much for being here to share your expertise. And we just wish you well in all your ice adventures this coming winter.
Right back at you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And to everybody at home, thank you guys for being here as well, because that is always a big part of the fun. And hopefully our weather doesn't affect this ice too much, and hopefully we will be out there, and hopefully we will too. And we'll be here to talk about it on next week's edition of The Night Fight.
Night, everybody.